We have one final segment to do, and it's a segment we've gotten a lot of love over the last couple weeks about. It is our Power Rankings segment. And on this week's edition of the Power Rankings, I'm going to actually have to do a little wardrobe change here really quickly. Don't worry, you're not going to see anything you don't want to see. Unless you're not a fan of this, then you will understand rather quickly why we are doing it. It is time to power rank the top 10 Kiss studio albums. My favorite band of all time, yes. I love a lot of musical groups. I love a lot of solo artists, but Kiss is the be-all, end-all, the start of it all for me. And as I talked about earlier in the year, got to meet Peter Criss at a signing in Concord. I have been a diehard Kiss fan since I was in middle school. Probably even earlier than that, but I saw Kiss for the first time back then, and I was hooked, and I was ruined, and nothing else has ever been the same. So I'm going to power rank my favorite Kiss albums, and obviously this is an Alive 2 t-shirt. I'm not going to put the live records on there because it would just be unfair. You could go Alive 2, Alive, however you want to rank them, and then everything else falls behind that. But I do love Kiss's studio discography, and a lot of people say, well, they're a better live band. I'm like, I understand that, but there's some incredible stuff across their discography. Once you get past all the bombast and the pyro and the personas and the characters and the makeup, there's a lot of great stuff, including some of the non-makeup stuff, which is included in this list. We don't have just all makeup albums on this list. This is a top 10 of the entire discography of Kiss. Obviously, the original lineup is my favorite. It is the best lineup. It is the be-all and end-all for so many people, and it's a lineup I never got to see in person, but I've grown up watching, worshiping, loving that lineup, and they're featured heavily in this list, but we're going to go down. Fortunately, I've got all these on vinyl, some in different shapes or others, but we're going to start first with number 10 on the list. It is the first non-makeup Kiss album released in 1983. It is Lick It Up with Vinnie Vincent and Eric Carr in the band there. This is really one of the heavier Kiss albums of the 80s. I hate that this is only the one, really, this is a great sister album to Creatures of the Night, the last Kiss makeup album of the 80s. Songwriting-wise, they were trying to follow suit with a lot of the other bands of the time, and really this is a strong effort in that era, in the vein of what music was like in the mid-80s. And what breaks my heart is that really between Creatures and through to Animalize, you get this creative writing from the band, but if they had just been able to work things out and keep this kind of going, they might have even had a higher success rate in the 80s than they even did. Part of that comes from the writing influence of Vinnie Vincent on this album. That's a hotly debated topic. I'm not going to get into it. Vinnie had his battles with Kiss over the years, but what he brings songwriting and guitar playing wise on this album and on Creatures, it should be applauded. You've got highlight tracks like Not for the Innocent, Young and Wasted, All Hell's Breaking Loose, A Million to One. I love these tracks. One of the rare albums you get all four guys to co-write a song. I believe they all have a writing credit on All Hell's Breaking Loose. So it's a phenomenal album in its own right. Second best of the non-makeup albums. Maybe that means there's another one coming. And in fact, there is, because at number 9, we have the 1992 release Revenge. And this is a German copy, you can see, because the S's have been changed in Germany due to the lightning bolt nature of it, looking a little too close for comfort for Germans to the SS that logos there from the Nazi period of time. But again, you'll see that throughout Germany mostly. I think in a couple other countries might have done it as well. I'm not positive. But this is the hard-edge 90s look of Kiss, wearing the leather dusters and whatnot. And it's truly like back to, raw, gritty, dirty, hard rock, heavy stuff. Like the drumming by Eric Singer on this album. It's his first album with him as a full member of the band after the tragic passing of Eric Carr, and all that situation is terrible. To lose Eric, who was such a great spirit of the band for so many years. But Eric Singer brings a unique style of play to his sets of drums as well on this album. But you get really return to form for Gene, who was throughout the mid-'80s had his attention in films and his attention away from the band, producing other acts like Liza Minnelli, I believe, Wendy O. Williams. He worked with a lot of people, was in a lot of movies. His attention is focused back in the right direction by really the project before this album, which was Hot in the Shade, but you see the heaviest stuff Gene has done on Holy, Spit, you get Domino, And then the Paul stuff on this album, I really love. Take It Off, Tough Love, and Heart of Chrome is my favorite Paul song from like 86 on to like the Psycho Circus album. I mean, Heart of Chrome is a absolute slap in the face of like anger and frustration, and it's so good. I love it. God Gave Rock and Roll to You, the last video that Eric Carr is in, and they literally got him out of the hospital to do that video because he wanted to be a part of it so bad. And you could tell he was battling his chemo at the time and doing all those things for his cancer. But it's a powerful moment and a testament to his presence in the band. His a cappella vocals are on that song. It's great, and it's a great album. And it also includes Car Jam as a tribute to Eric Carr on here, which was a jam session originally done by he and Ace Frehley that later became the track Breakout. It was originally titled the demo as Heaven. They recut it with Bruce on guitar and Bob Ezrin, who was a producer of music from the Elder when that song was written, or that jam was written, found it in a tape box and is in his studio there and found it. And it's the only drum solo that Eric put down on record, so they had to include it on this album. It's a great album. So that's number 9. Number 8, had to get a little creative on this one because this album is actually hanging on my wall in my parents' house still. This is Dressed to Kill. This is my copy out of the Originals, which is the compilation from the 70s there. If you can knock this album for anything, it's that the material is strong, but it was so rushed in the fact they had to come up with a new album while they were on the road, put things together. They took the last bits of songs they had from the previous 2, they put them together here. They wrote stuff in the recording process, and Neil Bogart, man in charge of Casablanca Records, produces it. Has a very almost not bubblegum pop, but a more poppy sensibility to it. If you could have gotten an Eddie Kramer, somebody to produce this record, it might even be higher because it's got some absolutely incredible tracks in there. Love Her All I Can, She, Two Timer, Getaway, Rock Bottom. There's some great stuff on here. It's just ultimately these songs are so quick, in and out, 2.5 minutes long. I mean, the whole album itself is like not even a half hour. It's so good, but it's so limited. And what an album cover. The suits on the streets of New York, it's great. A great title. Everything about it's great. It's just you want more. It left you wanting more. And ultimately, that's what keeps it down further on the list as far as cohesive packages go. Number 7 is an album that at the time most people were either confused by or, maybe misguided at the time in their anger toward disco. But it is Dynasty, and it's categorized by the big hit off this album, I Was Made for Loving You, which is like the most successful Kiss song around the globe, most streamed Kiss song around the globe. But there's so much more to this album. You have the Rolling Stones cover by Ace Frehley. This is really an album after Peter has started to work his way out of the group. He hasn't worked his way out until Unmasked, but was finally let go from that period of time after, battling some addiction issues as well, wanting more creative input, battling a car wreck around the same time. So he's not on this album. He has, other than the one track that he sings and plays on, which is his track, which is Dirty Livin'. And you hate that, but Anton Fig does an admirable job on this album. Anton's an incredible drummer who drummed with Ace, was in the David Letterman late night band for so many years, played with Joe Bonamassa and a bunch of other talented musicians. I love Anton's drumming. He's all over this record other than Dirty Livin'. But again, the big hits, are what color this album, which are I Was Made for Loving You and Sure Know Something. 2000 Man. I love the deeper tracks like X-Ray Eyes by Gene. I love Save Your Love by Ace. Magic Touch, another one of my top 5, 6, 7 Paul Stanley songs. I love Magic Touch, and it has a really interesting bit of solo there, an abridged kind of solo by Paul. It's sad that this ultimately deems the end of the original lineup of Kiss, but this is a really strong album if you want to get past the quote-unquote disco track. And I love I Was Made for Loving You. I love Sure Know Something. Those are great tracks just because they're poppier in nature, and people at the time didn't appreciate it because, there was so much new emerging music that Kiss could have taken a hint from. I don't begrudge them for putting it on this album. The problems you have come from when you don't market correct on the next couple. And I love those for what they are too, but I can understand why a Kiss fan from the early 70s might have listened to Judas Priest or Iron Maiden or AC/DC at this time when Kiss got softer in a lot of ways. It was more the concerts were filled with kids, but the music is still strong if you listen to it and give that album a chance. Number 6, going back to the early days of Kiss. This is another one from the originals because this one is also hanging on my parents' wall. It is Hotter Than Hell with the raunchy back album cover photo shoot, The Party. This is just a great example of what Kiss was in the early days. They were dark, they were heavy, they were unlike anything you'd seen at the time. They had great songs in this: Going Blind, Parasite, Got to Choose. You've got Watching You, you've got Mainline, Strange Ways, the trippiest Ace guitar solo with Peter on vocals. Again, there's so much to love about early Kiss, and the contributions that all four guys give to what the sound of Kiss is truly unique, because you can look at so many other bands and go, okay, that's, Joe Perry and Steven Tyler are the sound of Aerosmith. But for Kiss, as much as Gene and Paul may be the quote-unquote faces in front of the band, there's nothing that can tell me otherwise that Ace and Peter are not as important, if not more so, in so many ways to the sound of what Kiss was for this period of time. They're all adding their flavors together, and it makes the original lineup of Kiss my favorite band of all time. They brought all those elements together at a really unique time in music, and this album, the production is weird as hell between Kenny Kerner and Richie Wise. It was an effort. It was an idea to try to be heavier, darker, like a Black Sabbath sound of recording. But ultimately, you either love or hate the recording and the mix of this. I like it for what it is. It's kind of a dirtier, kind of mud mess at times, but it's awesome. And the songs are so strong, you can't take anything away from it. Number 5. It is the final of the original trilogy that makes up the originals. It is the first Kiss album, and this copy, this is, I'm not sure if this is an early, let's look, be able to see if it's an early copy or not. Yeah, it's a blue label. It's a Casablanca blue label. So it's one of those early copies from Casablanca. Again, this is the bedrock of all of Kiss right here. The songs on this album, and yes, they sound better live. There's no real argument to that. But the first drum beat on Strutter, the first side of this album, you hear it. Deuce, the first time you hear it. Nothing to Lose, excuse me. That shows up on the first single of Kisstory. I mean, you could go down the Black Diamond. You could go Cold Gin. The bedrock of Kiss's music is on this album. And this could be higher or lower depending on the day, but as I was ranking this right now, it wound up at number 5. I love these songs. These songs are indelible. They are a part of Kisstory. They are the bedrock foundation. The Plymouth Rock of Kisstory is this album right here. And people can say, I wish, I could get the live versions of them. But there's something, a charm and a musicality and a love of these first tracks on this first album. So again, it sits at number 5, could easily be higher. Number 4, a lot of people's pick for the best Kiss album of all time. It is Destroyer, produced by Bob Ezrin. Really start to see the growth that Bob helped give the songwriting portion of the band here. Detroit Rock City, King of the Nighttime World, God of Thunder. That's your first side with Great Expectations. Side 2, there's some deeper cuts there like Flamin' Youth, Sweet Pain. Those are great tracks in their own regard. The biggest, most successful Kiss song of all time, Beth, is on this album. And, I don't go back and long to hear ballads, but Beth is a phenomenal ballad written by Peter with Stan Penridge and Bob Ezrin. And I know there was a whole controversy about that. It's a Peter Criss song, however you want to slice it. And I know Gene has talked about it and back and forth, but Bob, worked on it with those guys, and it became a gigantic song. It was on the other side of Detroit Rock City. And Detroit Rock City might be the definitive Kiss song. If you really want to get technical, I know Rock and Roll Night is the one that everybody looks at. But if you told me to give one song, I only get 1 or 2 songs to show a fan why this band is cool musically, Detroit Rock City is right up there. It's a real story about a fan from Charlotte, North Carolina, trying to go see a Kiss concert that dies on his way there. All those things are evident and they're well documented if you want to go find the stories of them. It's a phenomenal track, and the production on this album is impressive. The drumming has never sounded better for Peter Criss than on this album. The God of Thunder sounds, the children and the noises and the demon persona is all there. Paul's at a high level. Ace sounds incredible on the solos. Everything sounds good on this album. It's one of the best sounding Kiss records of all time. Number 3, another in the category of incredible sounding mixes and just an incredible, overall production value for what was ultimately kind of a disjointed effort, because this is the last Kiss makeup album of the 80s. It is Creatures of the Night. Ace Frehley on the cover does not appear on this album. This is a combination of a bunch of guitar players, some auditioning to be in the band, some just doing session work. You've got incredible players like Robben Ford playing a solo on this album between Rock and Roll Hell and I Still Love You. You've got Vinnie Vincent on there on War Machine. Other tracks as well, like Danger, have Bob Kulick on guitar. Creatures of the Night, you have Steve Ferris of Mr. Mister taking a crack at the solo there. There's so many parts that shouldn't make this album great, but the overwhelming number one best part of this album is Eric Carr's thunderous drums. You will hear anybody talking about this album bring it up. He is absolutely bringing the thunder from down under on those drums. Like, he is, like, it's the sound of hell, the way he's beating the hell out of those drums. But the songwriting is so strong. You see growth with Creatures of the Night, showing what they learned from Detroit Rock City and other songs there with Paul. Rock and Roll Hell is a cover of a BTO song, or was written for BTO, and Gene gets a co-write there to make it sound a little bit different and tweak up a verse, I think maybe a line or two, but he gets it on the album, and it's phenomenal. It's actually my favorite track on the album. I know that's crazy. Rock and Roll Hell is my favorite track on the album. I Still Love You is the most impressive vocal performance by Paul Stanley on any recorded Kiss album. I will say that straight face, looking dead into the camera. I Still Love You is the most powerful, kick-ass, boot to the balls ballad you will ever hear. And Paul Stanley, if you didn't appreciate Kiss for anything else, Paul Stanley as a vocalist, songwriter, rhythm guitar player brings it all on that song. And then War Machine is just like, it's like the heaviest thing you're ever going to listen to in the Kiss catalog. I mean, it's just punching you right in the face. It's phenomenal. Deep tracks up and down. This is, if you want to quote yourself as being a serious Kiss fan, this is one you have to put in the top 5. And I've been obsessed with this album from the first time I heard it. I didn't think I could love a Kiss album that didn't have Ace and Peter that much, but golly, phenomenal work by all involved on that one. Number 2. Getting down to the top 2 here. This one's going to kind of surprise some people. This is Love Gun. Love Gun is one of the records produced by Eddie Kramer, who is my favorite Kiss producer, right up there with Bob Ezrin and Michael James Jackson, who produced Lick It Up and Creatures of the Night. But Eddie Kramer was one that worked on the original demos with Kiss, helped record Alive and Alive 2, records this album and another album, and also works with Alive 3 to a lesser extent. But this is really at the zenith of the career. The Live 2 period the Love Gun Alive 2 period is where everything is working in Kiss's favor. They win the Gallup poll for the most popular band in the world, or at least in the United States, I believe, over the Eagles and a couple others. I think it was in the United States. I would say in the world, but in the United States. This album was a Ken Kelly painting, just like Destroyer was. Songwriting-wise, look, this also kind of falls victim to what Dress to Kill did, and it's the only reason it's not higher. It could very well be the best album if they didn't have a couple of thrown in tracks in there, like Then She Kissed Me is obviously the weak track on the album. But I love I Stole Your Love. It's my favorite Kiss show opener. You want to talk about kicking ass from the drop? Go watch the Love Gun Alive 2 tour where they open with that sucker. Bam! Just coming down the stairwells and the pyro and I don't know how people don't love this band. Love Gun is like Paul just showing real growth there as a songwriter, putting it all together. Almost Human is another Gene Simmons demon character track, which is really heavy. Shock Me, the first Ace Frehley vocal on a Kiss album. He gets 3 on the next album with Dynasty, gets 1 on the other side of Alive 2. But Shock Me is the opportunity we get to see for the first time just what Ace is capable to bring as a vocalist. Songwriting, he had been bringing it for years, but this is arguably his best solo on a studio record. I mean, I could throw this one in there. I could throw a couple others that are coming up here in a minute. But off rip, it's a story about his near electrocution in Lakeland, Florida in 1976. Written like that with a lot of innuendo in there for lyrical content. But it's a strong track. It's one of my favorite Ace tracks, and it's a big focal point of Alive 2, the live performance of it as well there. Tomorrow and Tonight, Christine 16, there's some great tracks on here. Peter's track, Hooligan, is a kind of 50s groove and rock and roll, like real old school rock and roll track, but it's great. Vocally, Peter's bringing it on that one. I love this album. Just a couple tracks shy. If you could have gotten like Rocket Ride and Larger Than Life off of Alive 2 and put it on here, this could possibly be number 1. But in fact, it is not number 1. What is at number 1, though, is Rock and Roll Over. And I've shown this album a couple times already because I got Peter to sign it, and it is truly the only thing missing from this being a perfect record is there is no Ace vocal on it. We're 1 album away from that. But as far as a cohesive band playing together, this is as good as it gets with Kiss, in my opinion. You can like some of the songs on those other albums, the bigger smash hits, however you want to call it. But Rock and Roll Over, my friends, this is Kiss at its rawest. Rock and roll, love it. It's incredible. You've got deep tracks like See You in Your Dreams. You've got Baby Driver, Ladies Room, Mr. Speed. All those are really like, if you're a true Kiss fan and you got to get past that hits, like greatest hits package of stuff. You're tired of that. You need the next level. This is the album to do it. Love 'Em and Leave 'Em, Making Love, Take Me, I Want You, Calling Dr. Love. That might be my favorite Ace Frehley solo. And that's the thing about it. Ace doesn't sing on this song, doesn't even really have many, if any, maybe 1 writing credit on this album. But as a player, the tone they get with Eddie Kramer, and Ace and Eddie worked so well together because Ace had so much reverence for Eddie Kramer for the work he did with Zeppelin and Hendrix and everybody else that he worked with. He got the best performances out of Ace as a player. But then, Peter has Baby Driver as a vocal, and he has a Paul song, and Hard Luck Woman, which is a beautiful song written by Paul, a la, Rod Stewart-esque songs of the 70s that are really popular. But, this is a kick-ass rock album. I Want You starts with this kind of tease that it's all kind of be light and easy, and then they kick right into it, and they're rocking, and they're kicking ass and taking names, and this album cover reaches out and grabs you, and it's just, you gotta have it. I'm getting worked up about it. I had to bring the energy for this. I do not play around with the idea that people try to knock Kiss as musicians. There are incredible rock and roll pieces of music between the 70s, 80s, and 90s in this discography. You can get past the show. You can get past the dumb stuff that members of this band have said live and in media over the years. The infighting, the breaking up, the reunion, whatever you want. It's all there. The non-makeup, the makeup, who's wearing the makeup, who shouldn't be. There are good songs. There are great songs. There are fabulous songs on these albums. They are as good as anything from the time period. I will say that until I am blue or red in the face, whichever comes first. They can go toe-to-toe with anybody you love. From those 70s hard rock bands, from those 80s hard rock metal bands. They bring it. They have musicianship. They like to act like they don't. They don't know how to write a song. They're all about it for the money. I don't want to hear that shit. Kiss rocks. The hottest band in the world. And I know what they may be retired or doing whatever they're doing now, but I am a card-carrying member of the Kiss Army, and I will always be that. I love this music. It is timeless. And records like this right here, number 1 on my list, Rock and Roll Over. Ranking the power rankings of the Kiss studio albums. And again, if I wanted to make this really easy, I could have just done Alive and Alive 2 and called it a day. But that's not how I do things on this show. It's my show. This is what I do. And